The following is a local resident producers program. The program content is the sole responsibility of the producer and does not necessarily reflect the views or policies of CATV2, Oshkosh Community Media Services, the City of Oshkosh, or Time Warner Cable.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Eye on Oshkosh, and Cheryl, Hentz and Dan Rylance here. Very pleased to welcome back to the show someone who's been on many times, Tina Haffeman. She's here tonight wearing her Oshkosh Esther hat, talking about the day-by-day warming shelter. She's been on before talking about that, so we want to get an update on that. And joining her this evening is Reverend Nancy Behm, who was part of the planning process on this and now is on the board for the shelter. And she said we can just call her Nancy. So we won't be.
Hi, Nancy.
We're not going to be coming off as disrespectful if we just call her Nancy and not pastor or reverend. So anyway, thanks to both of you for being here. We
Thank
appreciate
you
it
for
very
having
much.
us.
Yes,
so
it's
much.
exciting to be here.
So we wanted to have you back on because now we've just passed the middle part of August, and you're starting to gear up for opening this fall. And we wanted to see, if you had any additional needs or whatever. So, and for people who maybe missed the first show that you were on, let's kind of recap. This shelter idea, the warming shelter idea, came about because why?
Well, it came about because Esther, an interfaith organization, is an organization that discerns needs, draws the community around those needs, and then does the action. And then usually backs out, and indeed that has happened. It's just I haven't backed out, but I will.
You never back off from anything, Tina.
I plan to. It's just the way this worked. This
Could you give us a
time.
date? 2:15 or 2:20?
Well, I'd love to do that. Really, I became the institutional knowledge that then they seem to have. But I'm looking because actually right now we are getting ready, very ready to hire an executive director. And so I am really happy about that. So, but I will still be president of the board for the time being. So we got a task force behind it, people who worked very, very hard on all the things we need to do to set it up. And then we went about the process of becoming a nonprofit, a 501(c), and we were able to do that really quickly with our accountant who's on our board and a helpful lawyer. And in May, we became a nonprofit. And so Day by Day Warming Shelter, Inc. is actually a nonprofit now, and now we've actually begun to do the fundraising that requires grants and things. And so there we are. We have a location, and we have bad days and good days, but the good days are so wonderful.
That's right.
And so it looks like we're past the tipping point.
Okay. And the location, just to refresh
The
people's memory?
location is at Most Blessed Sacrament St. Peter's site.
Which is on High.
It's on High.
It's across from Hardee's.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
And right on the corner of High and Jackson. Sort of on the corner.
That's where the church is. Then
Yeah.
you back it up. The campus of the church has like 5 buildings, and in the middle there is the old gymnasium. Most people have been in that gymnasium for one reason or another.
Like
and
rummage sales?
Rummage sales, or like grade school basketball.
Sure.
And then the lower level, not really a basement, which is nice. The lower level is a very large, beautiful room. And has a church kitchen and 2 restrooms, and we could not be happier with
So
the whole
it'll be in the
thing.
building that houses the gymnasium?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
That's good to know. And I'm assuming that just a signage will be available so that people who need this shelter and its facilities know how to find it.
Indeed.
Okay, all right. Okay, so, well, you mentioned hiring an executive director. The last time you and I talked, you were going to have one hired already. Something happened, or?
Well,
It's a process.
Okay.
And I think it just took longer than we expected.
Okay.
You know, you have to develop, the criteria, and then you have to find places to post it. You have to go through all the applications. It's quite, maybe a little bit more of a job than we thought it was at the beginning.
Right. Because this is a grassroots thing.
Sure.
With people and we are able to find people to help us. But we also then hemmed and hawed about, was this going to be, this is a shelter open from October through April. So was this going to be a part-time person that was just going to work part-time during that season, full-time during that season, full-time? We had to hem and haw over that.
that's a good
Also,
question.
it's a huge expense. So what actually happened was a few board members and I went and visited the Fox Valley Warming Shelter in Appleton. Again, we've been there many times. It's open year-round. And we watched what that director did. And on the way home, I had already come to this conclusion, but on the way home, a few of them said, this is really a lot of work. We're going to have somebody there. Because he's pretty on call 24/7.
Yeah.
And because they're much more involved than we are, and which I tried to remind them of, because actually they're a little overwhelming. But so that changed a little bit. We had to make sure we had funding. We had to make sure, a lot of things to make sure of. A lot of legalities, liability insurance. I mean, the details are unbelievable. We are down to sort of things like how big the bins are for bedding, though. So,
Well, as far as the executive director goes, though, when are you hoping to have someone hired for that position?
They're going through the applications right now.
Okay.
They have, in fact, I talked to one of the personnel committee this morning, and she said they have quite a few applications, and they're starting to go through them, and it's going to be relatively soon.
So when that person is hired, will they be the new face for the day-by-day warming shelters? So if we wanted an update at some point down the road, would that be the person who would probably be coming on, talking? You're always welcome, both of you are. But I mean, is this person going to be kind of the go-to person
that's
for
what we're
things like
hoping,
this?
and that's what it says in the job description. So
Okay.
that's what we're hoping, yes. Although I will always want to come along.
Well, that's fine.
It'll be this chair that the executive director will have.
Well, this chair.
How big is your committee?
Our board?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you asked that, because we did just, because we've had several people ask to be on the board. Nancy wasn't one. I actually had to kind of beg her to be on the board.
No, she didn't.
That's not true. She does a lot of work. But we've had, we wanted to cover a lot of demographics. Like we wanted to have an accountant, a social worker, and we have fabulous people. But a couple of other people have called and said, I think I could help. Could I be on there? And our board was full. And so when this last person asked, I just said yes, and then we went and changed the bylaws. So now we can go up to 11.
Okay.
But we have also a task force that's left over from the Esther. The Esther community is still helping a lot, and when I need a lot of stuff done, I call them too.
Very good.
And of course, even if people can't help with those things, there's always the need for volunteers of some kind. And one of the things that we wanted to chat with you ladies about was the needs that you are experiencing as you get ready to, in 2 months from now or 6 weeks from now. That's hard to imagine, isn't it? That we're already, we're already past the middle part of August, and you're looking at opening in October. So that's not all that far off.
It is not.
What kinds of needs do you have? Volunteers? You have a need for volunteers? And what would they do?
Bring in meals.
Okay.
We'd like to serve them a simple meal when they get there at night, and we're looking for volunteers that would come in and do something like that.
Now, I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you said bring in meals. So there won't be cooking facilities there that are being able to be used.
Maybe heating.
Yeah, not big, use the stove for
Kind
a
of
big
stuff,
meal kind
okay.
of stuff. So Nesco, and we'll have, food available to make sandwiches. I mean, there's a time period when people can come in where there'll be somebody there to welcome them with the door open, and then a time when the door is locked, and then police can bring people at any time of night.
Okay.
And then we might want to make them a sandwich. So we will have food there, but we
Okay.
will not be making big meals every night. We're going to see if we can get groups to what I would love to have happen. I'd love to have 30 groups, so that on the first Monday of every month, this group brought a plate, a thing of sandwiches, and then on the first Tuesday, so if I have 30 of them, then they each should do that 6 times, and then they're done. So this is what I'm hoping for, but we're not quite. We're working on the volunteer manual. We're just not quite ready. People call me, and I take their names and put them on a list. but we're just not really quite ready. It's all going to happen like in the last 10 days.
Of course.
Yeah, it always does.
Like everything does.
What other things would volunteers do besides meals?
Well, I think one thing they could do is donations. Donating things like health and beauty.
Toiletries.
Yeah, toiletries.
Okay.
Soap,
Okay.
shampoo, things like that.
Personal hygiene items?
Yes.
Okay.
Toothbrush and toothpaste?
Yep.
Okay.
We have a school that's ready to work on that.
Okay,
It's called me
good.
that wants
Yeah.
to do that. We hope that also up in Appleton, when they first started, their warming shelter was in many different churches, and so the church would line up 42 volunteers for the week, and it was operated mostly by volunteers. They had a director, but the volunteers stayed up in shifts all night. This is a shelter where there will be the difference between a warming shelter and an emergency shelter. One of the huge differences is that there's someone awake all night. They're supervised all night. And so there will be a staff person there all night, but we also want at least one volunteer in shorter shifts all night.
Okay.
We're hoping to make use of university students for
So
whom it's
you're-
easier to stay up.
So you're looking at maybe one person all night and then maybe 4 for 3 hours?
Yeah.
Something like that?
Yep.
Okay.
We have sort of shifts worked out that way.
Okay.
4 hours is the about limit that
Yeah,
people
yeah.
can really take it.
Yeah.
So because it's either it's going to be like being a driver's ed teacher. It's either really awful or nothing.
Well, and while we're on the subject of volunteers actually being there, help alleviate some fears, because I think people, those who were opposed to this and who still may be, I think a lot of their opposition probably comes from fear of the unknown, fear of, that these people are violent or dangerous in some way, fear of that it's going to create a vagrancy kind of mentality in the neighborhood, or an image of that kind of thing in their neighborhood. And that's not at all what's going to be happening here. So can either one of you or both of you talk a little bit about that for a moment or two?
Well, you could talk about Loaves and Fishes that had that same, the program you started, had that
Well,
same worry set.
There was, I believe there is, but there's a lot of fear, and it's the fear of the unknown. But we have rules, and we'll have rules in place for the clients that we serve, and those rules are pretty strict. And we also have the full support of the Oshkosh Police Department. I mean, they have just been wonderful, wonderful in helping us. So I don't see that happening. We have, at our church, we have a program, Loaves and Fishes, where we serve these same people a meal on Saturdays, and there was that fear, and we have had one instance in 8.5 years. One instance where the police had to be called. And, to say that there'll never be an instance where we won't have a problem, that's wishful thinking, but I just see it to be such a rare occurrence. I don't think that should be a worry.
We always tend to be afraid of the unknown, and then when we're forced to kind of face our fears, it turns out to usually be nothing much at all.
The other shelters, we use data from there, and they, I'm talking about Appleton, Green Bay, and Fond du Lac, which all have warming shelters and all have had them going for a while. Very, very rarely do they have trouble. In fact, I think in Appleton, like in the first 3 years, they had to call the police twice, and it was the same couple that was fighting. It's very rare. I've been up there. I've observed a lot of these shelters, and the clients come in, and they often know each other after a few weeks. They are friendly. They want something to eat, and then they go to bed.
And they're thankful, and they don't want to ruin the good thing that they now
Sure.
have.
So if somebody's looking to maybe volunteer for a 3-hour shift or an overnight shift or whatever, they can rest assured that their safety isn't going to be threatened or compromised in some way.
So we have lots of safety nets built in, and we are very close to the police station.
Yes.
Which is really comforting to people who are worried about it.
Sure.
Let's go through a couple of basics. What's your max number that you can handle?
Well, that's a good question, because we had to have some, the city has come in and said we've had to make some modifications, and we're working on those. And they can't really give you an occupancy permit until those are done.
Okay.
But we've talked to them. I said, we have to kind of know.
Yeah, you do, yeah.
So we think it's like 2022.
Okay. Do you need beds?
We are using very lightweight mattresses
Okay.
on the floor,
Oh, okay.
as I was done in other shelters, and actually Father Carr is donating those. I
Okay.
just went to put one in my car today and took it over to the shelter to measure it up to see if it's a regular twin size so we can buy sheets.
I see, okay. Male and female?
Male and female, but the experience from the other shelters is that it's about 80% male usually.
Okay.
So there will be a
division
a
between male
division
and female.
between.
All right, what hour of the night would it start?
We hope to open our doors at 8 p.m.
8 p.m.?
Right around 8 p.m.
Okay.
And what we'll do is we'll open our doors, and then they will be locked at 9:30 or so. We haven't.
Okay.
We're still working on the
Right.
manual
Still
for
work-
that.
okay.
Right.
And at that point, you can't come in anymore. There's
Okay.
no coming and going. And once you're
Okay.
in, you're in for the night, or you can't come back.
Okay, and what hour would they have to leave then in the morning?
8 in the morning.
8 in the morning,
So we're looking at 12 hours.
okay.
Unless, of course, we will take emergencies
Sure.
that are brought in by the police after the 9:30 hour.
Okay.
And that may happen. People who don't know about our place and just need a place. Right now, they're going to the police station. And so if they go there, the police could then say to them, let us show you where the shelter is, and we can take you even though it's past curfew time.
How are you going to keep track of repeaters?
We,
How often will you let the same person stay? No limit?
6 months.
6 months?
No limits, yeah.
No
limits. No limits.
for now.
Okay.
So this is how we're starting.
Okay.
This is what other shelters have done. There has not been anybody in the other shelters, or maybe one,
Okay.
that stayed the entire time that they were
Okay.
open. Now, in Appleton, it's a little different now because they're year-round.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're dealing with some things that I'm happy they're dealing with, because then later on we can deal with them and they'll know what they're talking about,
Yeah, yeah.
which has been very helpful.
But it's pretty safe to say that you probably will have X number that are going to be there for maybe weeks at a time.
Probably. The common scenario for someone using a warming shelter, I've
Okay.
been told, is that they may come. One of the problems, one of the things that I had not thought about at all about someone who has nowhere to stay,
Okay.
is that they are often taken advantage of. So they know they need a place, somebody knows that. They say, yeah, you can stay here in my garage, but then I want your social security check, or then I want this, or I want that. So they'll have a relationship, might be a family member or a friend or just somebody they met somewhere, and they may stay there for a couple of weeks until there's some kind of blow up or fight or disagreement, and then come to a warming shelter for 16 to 19 days is a routine at once stay, and then they'll go back and try. I mean, this is a mattress on the floor in the basement of a church. This is not some place you're dying to stay,
Right.
you know, but you will if it's cold,
You
you know.
will, yeah.
So they would like to make other arrangements. Somebody say, oh, you're staying at the warming shelter, you can come and stay here, and then they do that until
Okay.
so that's a common
Okay.
scenario.
What are they going to do for 12 hours? They're not going to sleep? Are you going to offer them books and magazines, television, things like that?
Television, yeah.
Okay.
So those are other things that people could donate then?
Yes, we have had a washer and dryer and television donated
really?
recently,
Okay.
so that was a big thing. And yeah, books and DVDs.
Maybe some movies,
yeah,
yes,
some
that would be
movies.
good.
I have
Because
found
we
that-
won't have cable, so they might want movies.
no, we will have cable.
Oh, we will? Oh.
Basic cable.
Okay,
Basically,
all right.
that's a few channels.
Will they be able to watch you then?
Sure,
Okay.
yes. Yes.
They'll
Because
have that on the thing.
We
Yeah,
will have it on the,
it's-
yes.
That's part of basic cable.
But yeah,
yeah.
it'll be on the
Yeah.
list of things they must
We're
watch
really,
on
we're
Monday
really
night.
basic.
Required viewing.
Required viewing,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
Required viewing on Monday and Saturday nights.
You going to make out the test, or you want me to?
The other shelters do have, well, it's hard to get TV in at all if you don't have cable
Yeah.
Yeah.
coming in, you know, so it's not, we aren't going to have HBO.
Oh, okay.
When we visited the Fond du Lac shelter, I
Yeah.
also noticed that they had a few board games, decks of cards,
Right.
Okay.
crossword puzzle
Yeah, yeah.
books.
Jigsaw puzzles?
Jigsaw puzzles. They
Okay.
had some of those set us over here and over there, and they had little tables set up, card tables and folding tables. So that also gives them something to do.
Sure.
But I think a lot of them will just sleep because, you know, if they don't have a place to go
Yeah.
during the day, they're walking around and
They're tired.
They're
They're
tired.
exhausted. Well, and a lot of them may be depressed too. And,
Yeah.
you know, when people are depressed, they tend to want to just sleep a lot.
Winter clothing.
Go ahead.
Let's just say people come in, it's winter time, they come in with a light jacket, they don't have anything else, it's colder the next. Any thoughts about having some
Actually,
overshoes and and jackets and things like that?
we have not worked out the logistics of
Okay.
having them at the place, but
Yeah.
St. Vincent de Paul
Good.
will give us vouchers
Wonderful.
to get what we need. So I'm a little worried about storage
Yeah.
at this time.
Even if you had one rack or something.
Right,
Huh?
right. Something to, and also, you know, because we have the washer and dryer there, we also, in Fond du Lac, they will overnight wash the clothes and then give them back. So we need to have something for them to
Sure.
change
Okay.
into. And so, so we're working on that, but
Yeah.
we understand that as a problem. And St. Vincent de Paul actually did contact me and say, you know, you can
Yeah.
you can use us as vouchers for vouchers.
They've really
So-
got the base covered.
Yeah,
I mean, you're much further ahead than when we were here. I mean, don't you think?
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this is...
You know, and I know we talked about this when you were on the last time, but to review, you know, give us just the very basic definition or difference, explain the difference of the homeless shelters or what Father Carr's Place to Be does,
Right.
as opposed to this. Because I think in some people's minds, they're thinking that these are synonymous with each other. and they
certainly
are in a
do.
way.
They
sort
are
of,
in a way.
but-
You know, there is a in every community there is a continuum of care, housing continuum, and it begins with communities that have warming shelters. Then that goes to an emergency shelter. That would go to then maybe a transitional. Subsidized housing, and then and then independent. So this is wide range, and we do not have. We have two great emergency shelters. We have the Christine Ann, which is fabulous, and Father Carr's, which has done a great job of emergency sheltering all this time. 37 years, I think they've done it now. They though are not set up to take care of people who are best served being supervised all night. They can't do it. They have individual rooms there. They don't have the employees. They don't have the facility. And so a warming shelter is for supervision all night, and all in the same room. And that's the big difference. We're working closely with Father Carr's.
Plus, at his place, you know, that's sort of their home, if you will.
Right. They're open all
That-
year round.
Exactly, and 24 hours a day. They can kind of come and go, I guess,
Right.
Depending on their work schedule and so forth. And that is also different from what you're doing because your hours are going to be 8 to 8.
Seasonally. So
Yeah.
it's
Are you
for
going
now.
to include children?
Well, that's a good question. A lot
Because
of
we're
people
just
ask that.
talking about those two
Yes.
facilities. I'm thinking, oh, wait a minute now. What about children?
Right. So we, like other warming shelters, we're taking most of our cues. I mean, really, if we didn't have these other warming shelters to go by, it would be rough.
Sure,
But
sure.
they've been great. It's 18 and over.
Okay.
So individual 18 and over. Children, Father Carr's does take children and families, and he's working on expanding his ability to do that.
Okay.
And usually if they have gotten to the stage where they are needing some place like a warming shelter, children have usually been dealt with in some way in the system somehow.
Okay.
So the if a family comes with children, we will not turn them away,
Okay.
and we will work to
Facilitate whatever way it goes.
wherever they're
Okay.
going to go.
That's
So
good.
it's one thing I would like to mention that is new from last time is that when we visited Appleton, they have because they are evolved, they're 5 years and they've been working on this, they have something called an ISP, Individual Support Plan. And so when a person comes in within the first,
Special ed term.
it is, yeah, it's
I just, when you
exactly.
said IEP, I know
Yeah,
those.
Sure, it's one of those alphabet
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
You really
yeah.
don't need it.
No,
It's,
I understand.
within the first 24 hours that the person is there, they work on, it could also be called an exit plan.
Okay.
So they work on the immediate problem that brought them there. Okay, they address that so that people are calmed and given. This is also, we can work toward independence. This is what we're working toward, to give them the tools to be independent. The fact that they don't have to worry about where they're sleeping at night is already a help. But then they work on the immediate problem, and then they set goals. And then they may set them up with some social services like food share, which even if it's only a small amount, networks them out into other things that they may be able, that then hopefully in 30 days, then 30 days they will review it. Do they have to leave in 30 days? No, but that's something we're working toward really hard.
Okay.
Okay. If people want to donate funds, you mentioned that you're a nonprofit. Where would they donate funds to? Is it the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation who's handling your funds?
Nope,
or
it's
who
all
is-
us now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Where
Remember,
can they go?
last time United Fund was going to set it up for you. I mean,
United Way was
United
our
Way, I mean, yeah, yeah.
United Way was wonderful to be
Yeah.
our fiscal
But
agent.
you're on your own now.
We're on our own.
Well,
Yep.
how do we send money?
Well, we'll take checks right now.
Write her a check.
Oh, okay.
But we have this N11 set up a wonderful website for us for free,
Okay.
which was
N11.
N11 Dealer Fire. They're called too. It's
okay,
Eric
all right.
Hoopman's office, and when we. They have a wonderful web design company in Oshkosh, and they offered to do it for us for free,
Okay.
and it's a fabulous. And the domain name warmingshelter.com was not taken.
You took it.
We took it, and we got it.
Warmingshelter.com.
Well, that's
Okay.
easy.
And there's a donation button right there,
Oh, my
Through
heavens.
PayPal, if anybody has a PayPal account.
or any credit card they can use too.
Okay.
So so that's my favorite thing.
Oh,
And
that's great.
And the website, I encourage people to go there because it's not finished, but it
Okay.
does do a good job of explaining what we're going to
Wonderful.
be doing, and it will also be able to sign up for volunteer things
Okay.
eventually too. So I'm really
And a
thrilled
wish
with that.
list.
Yes,
And are you on
wish list also.
Facebook as well, or no?
Not yet.
Okay.
But
Maybe soon.
That's the easiest thing to set up.
We'll put that in our notes.
All right, there you go.
yes, and Cheryl Hentz can help with that.
It's so easy.
I
Yes.
know. Even I could do it.
Anybody
I
can do
have
it.
one, yes.
Before we run out of time, I want to talk a little bit about this because you mentioned that the Appleton shelter is open year-round, and what do they do? And we talked a little bit about this before we started taping. Cooling shelters, with some of these brutally hot days that we've had this summer, I've noticed that there are some communities, across the country, actually, that have cooling shelters. The heat is just as dangerous. Sometimes it can be more so
Right.
dangerous than the cold. Is Appleton shelter, are they providing a cooling shelter as well?
Well, they're not open during the day.
Okay.
They are year-round, but they're not open during the day.
Okay.
That's a good distinction.
However,
Interesting.
However, there is another group. Since you asked that, Nancy has always had a special concern about teens, and so when we began working on this, she said, we're going to need a teen shelter now." And then someone said to me, "No, we're going to need a day shelter now." And so, and other people have said, "And so, what about the hot days?" And so, all of those things are wonderful things that I believe we can move toward. Is when we get this successful, the community embraces it, like they have really well. Although we do need funds. Then we can move on to other kinds of shelters and expand and work on that because it's a really important thing. And
Well,
they
it
are more
is.
popular in Appleton, actually. The warming shelter is used more during the summer. They have more people wanting to use their services during the summer to come in and be cool at night. They actually are in more demand in the summer. That surprised me.
I wonder where these people go during the day, though, because that's when it's really, things do
I
cool
know.
down somewhat at night.
I know. They go where they
Isn't that
go.
that-
Try a public library.
That is
There are
interesting.
lots of places that they go now.
Restaurants.
Yeah. So maybe by next summer, I don't want to, put too much on your plate, but maybe by next summer you'll have some of the, things worked out here and be able to offer something in the summer.
Yes.
So
Some giant benefactor will show up.
that's Dan.
I've got their.
He's got the website
I'm going right in
address.
as soon as it's over.
That's right. I knew that you probably would be.
You're
All
gonna
right.
write the check out before
Oh,
you
okay. I'll do a PayPal thing. Okay, so it's warmingshelter.com. That's the website.
Wonderful.
Simple enough, and feel free to visit their website, find out whatever additional information you want to, and make a donation. It's certainly a good cause. So thanks very much for
Okay.
being here.
Thank
you so much
After you
for
get
asking.
operational, we're going to
Yeah.
have you back.
Yep.
Your executive director will come back at that time.
I think
Can't
first
and,
week in October, don't you think?
when in October are you opening, by the way?
We hope to open the 15th.
Oh,
the
That's
15th.
That's
Okay.
our,
All
that's
right.
our aim.
Our target
Our
date.
target.
All right.
And we will open the 15th.
All
Okay.
right, excellent. Okay, very good. Well, we're going to have you back after,
Yeah.
maybe a month or so after you're open and see how things are going.
Wonderful. That would be
Great.
great.
All
I
right.
appreciate it a
Yeah.
lot.
Terrific. Just sit tight. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will be joined by a couple of folks from UW-O talking about a neighborhood study that they're doing. So we'll be right back.
Every year, the U.S. Department of the Treasury receives about 1.4 million reports of problems with paper checks. Checks can be lost, stolen, or delayed. If you still receive Social Security payments by paper check, Treasury wants you to know about a safer, more convenient way to get your money. The Direct Express Prepaid Debit MasterCard. The Direct Express card is new and is available to anyone receiving Social Security benefits, even if you don't have a bank account. Your monthly benefits will be automatically placed onto your card account each month on the day your money is due. While other debit cards cost money, it is possible to use the Direct Express card for free to make purchases, pay bills, and get cash at thousands of locations nationwide. There are no sign-up or monthly account fees. No more waiting for the mail or worrying about lost or stolen checks. Call 1-877-212-9991 or visit www.usdirectexpress.com.
Welcome back to the second half of Eye on Oshkosh. Dan and I are happy to be joined now by by Paul. I'm still thinking PayPal. See,
That's all right.
By Paul Van Auken. You are with UWO. What do you do there?
Teach in the sociology department and environmental studies program.
Okay, all right. And Kayla Hubbard, you're a research assistant for
Yes, I
Paul,
am.
or PAL.
We're pals.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm sure we'll become pals
There you
before this
go.
half hour is over. So you're his research assistant, and we had you folks on because we want to talk to you about this neighborhood study that you're doing, and it's kind of a fascinating thing. So, but we're confused, and maybe you can help.
We're always confused, so don't be patient.
Maybe you can kind of help clear up our confusion, because there are, I think, 2 or 3 different neighborhood studies going on right now. And the city is doing one in conjunction with, I think, the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. And then
Yeah,
you're doing one.
doing one.
And I think maybe people are getting confused, because we certainly are confused about why these multiple studies, how are people to distinguish them from each
And
other.
are you doing the same things, I guess, too?
Yeah.
Are they different?
Yeah.
So maybe you can help us on that.
Sure. Yeah, there are 3 different things going on. I'll talk about our study last.
Okay.
The first thing you mentioned, my understanding of that is the city has an intern who I know, Lori Hoover, and she is in a graduate program at UW-Milwaukee.
Okay. That's the one you're referring to, Cheryl.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's basically the fact that she's a student there, I think, is the only connection with
Okay,
that
so
program, as
they're
far as I
not
know.
doing it in conjunction with the
No.
university down there.
I may be wrong about that,
Okay.
but what she's working on is creating a neighborhood toolkit. So she is doing some research. They have a survey up online, a short survey that's where people are
Right, I've seen it.
basically giving some information about what they believe their neighborhood is and that kind of thing. Similar, not the same though.
Okay.
And the purpose there is she's trying to compile what should be a really helpful resource for people in neighborhoods in Oshkosh that want to get something going, that they'll be able to use this toolkit, and that survey she's doing will help with that. The second thing is NeighborWorks. They're doing some surveys in one part of town on the east side of Oshkosh.
That area that's been designated as
As
the
the-
east side neighborhood.
Yep.
Okay.
So they're doing surveys there, written surveys, and they have a specific focus that all NeighborWorks initiatives across the country have.
Okay.
They're looking for specific information about various things like people's confidence in their neighborhood and that kind of thing.
Okay.
What we're working on precedes those efforts slightly, but it's studying what's going on with the city and NeighborWorks is actually part of our study.
Okay.
So one of the big differences here is this is an academic study with tangible, practical outcomes, hopefully, but it's an academic study. And I could tell you more about the origins of it, but in essence, it's not a survey, which is a big difference. And part of the reason I was so happy to be invited to be on the show is that we're actively seeking participants, because people that participate have to do they do a lot of the work. One of the people that Kayla and I interviewed sent a letter to us because she had gotten a letter. We're trying to recruit people in different ways, including just sending out letters to a random sample of addresses throughout the city. So we're not just focused on the east side, even though we're trying to do complementary things so that NeighborWorks can use our information too. We're trying to get people from throughout the city. And we got this letter back, and we ended up interviewing this lady, but she said, boy, you're asking people to do a lot of work. But part of the point here is to get people actively engaged, not just in filling out a survey. That has its place too, but to get out in the neighborhood, draw maps of what they think their neighborhood is, take photos of it. So we have academic aims. What is a neighborhood? It's kind of a fuzzy
We run
concept.
into that all the time,
Right.
don't we?
Especially when we're talking about schools,
Yeah.
neighborhood schools.
Yeah.
Well, what's a neighborhood?
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, and therefore, what's a neighborhood school? So.
And I think that's a concept, believe it or not, that people have studied for a long time, but there's no definitive
No.
answer to that question. And other questions along those lines that are kind of bigger academic ones.
Right.
But in the end, we hope to have a report and different discussions around the city that allow people to really use this information to say, here are some things to think about in terms of what Oshkosh neighborhoods are, why they matter, and that kind of thing.
I
Who
think
will
I
be
filled out your survey at Farmers Market. Did you have a student that was going around?
No, see, we're not doing a survey.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. I thought it was your group. Anyway, it took me
As
about,
you look at me,
took me about 20,
I don't have a group.
took me about 20 minutes. I just sat down on the curb and I filled this whole thing out. Oh, I
That
thought
may have been the NeighborWorks survey.
Yeah,
'cause
I
they're
don't know.
going-
I'm sorry. I thought,
yeah.
Okay, all right. Thanks.
See, we're more confused
Yeah,
than we
yeah,
thought,
yeah.
really.
Okay, all right, disregard.
Okay, so with the information that you're gathering then, who will be able to use it when it's all done? Will the city be able to use it? Will NeighborWorks be able to use it? Will individuals be able to use it to somehow improve their own neighborhood, whatever their definition of neighborhood is?
What's your answer to that, Kayla?
All of the above. I think that on the individual level, it's going to be up to that person. If they feel like they want to get more involved in their neighborhood, this is going to help them be able to do that, because they might have, okay, now this is what denotes my neighborhood, and what are we going to have? Let's have a block party. Let's create a neighborhood association, and you know, what are things that we want to change in our neighborhood? Are there things we want to change or improve? I think the city is going to be able to take it from there to all departments. I mean, parks, personnel, the police department, fire department, in all ways, I think. And NeighborWorks, I mean, we're kind of doing it not in conjunction with them, but off of some of the stuff that they're doing. So.
And definitely in coordination with them. I've met with them a couple times to discuss what they're doing and what we hope to do and that kind of thing. So.
God, I have 3 questions with using the word survey.
Yeah.
Well,
So, I mean, one thing that might help to make it
Sure,
even clearer
sure.
is just to kind of go through some of the details of it.
Sure. And before we do that, though,
Yeah.
I have one more question. Unlike the city's survey, which by the time this show airs, that survey will be done, because you can only do that through August 20th, and this is the 18th. How long are you going to be gathering information?
Good question. And that's another big difference. This is a multi-year effort, probably over the next 2 years, because
Okay.
it's time consuming to do this, because it's not a survey. And it takes time to recruit people. And I can talk more if that's of interest too, in terms of how we're working our strategy for recruiting people.
Sure.
But
Well, why don't we go through,
Yeah,
as you
that's a
mentioned,
good-
let's talk about what it is that you're looking for people to do, and then we can talk about how people can get directly involved, either with helping you guys or just doing something with respect to their own neighborhood. So, take it away.
yeah, sounds good. Basically, what we have is a 3-step process. And the first step is for people to draw a map of their neighborhood. And this probably won't serve this purpose for television real well, but I brought this example of a map
Well, if you hold it up, I think we can probably zoom in on it a little bit. And
that somebody drew.
so that's taking into account several blocks, it looks like, or How many blocks is this really taking in?
My God, I'm in there.
You're in this person's neighborhood.
Absolutely.
As am I.
Really?
As am I.
I'm right to 602 East Parkway. I'm going. What's Bowen? No, I'm right. No, that's I'm one block off. I'm sorry.
You're out of it.
I'm one block.
You're not
Well,
included.
it was kind of interesting to talk to this person to find out that, yes, indeed, I am in their neighborhood. And this might be bigger than you'd think a neighborhood is, or it might be smaller. I mean, the point with this is to leave it open. The step one says, draw a map of your neighborhood. Now, there are things we ask people to draw in there. For example, parks and bodies of water, public institutions. We've got school here,
It's also
old
the voting
hospital. All these red X's are houses where this person knows people by their first name at
That's
least.
neat.
And different things, the major streets and that kind of thing. So that's what we do then.
And it's got churches on here?
Yep. And so various things like that in places that would be a hangout, places that are, serve a purpose for getting groceries and that kind of thing. And so we have a list of a bunch of different things that and I think our instructions are pretty clear, and this is what we'll give to everyone.
Well, and I like the note here at the end of step 1. It says the map does not have to be to scale, does not have to look good, or necessarily be accurate. And that's good, because something like this scares the bejesus out of me, because I am not artistic like this at all. I can't draw at all, and something like this would scare me.
Right.
So I'm glad for that. And by the way, this sheet of what's needed is online, and if you just go to the city's website and then go to assets/PR/project description, it's there, and where you can give Paul a call too, and he can direct you. And I think I'm going to also scan this and put it on our website.
Great.
So that will be another way, maybe easier than going to the city's website and clicking. Just go to our website, and probably, well, by the time you see this show, I'll have this scanned and on the site. So, so anything else about step 1 then that you want someone to do? It's drawing a map of
Well,
the
I'll just give you,
neighborhood.
just to kind of respond to what you said about this idea scaring you. I'm sure you wouldn't be the only one that would say that. And some people, I've done a variety of things to this point, interviewed people individually, did a focus group with some people that did it as a part of a group for kind of a training for them and research for me. And some people were a little bashful about their maps, but all the maps were good and interesting and different. And this one recent one, the same lady that sent us a letter, it was a very interesting interview, and she had a map that was not drawn at all. She took a Google map and then wrote in certain things because she didn't.
Oh, that's a good idea.
We didn't keep it.
And that was, well, we have it somewhere.
Yeah.
But that served the purpose too, because the purpose is to get you thinking about what your neighborhood is and then talk about it in step 3.
So if somebody wanted to do that Google map idea, I'm assuming they would just go to googlemaps.com, enter their own address, and then take it from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't want to promote that too much because I like the creative aspect of asking people to draw it, but it's so open-ended and the idea is to be creative that's totally fine. And for you, because we want you to do it, Cheryl, you can use Google Maps or whatever.
I can
Google it to
still-
death.
I can enlarge it probably and still enter in churches, schools,
Yeah.
shopping areas.
That's what she did. She marked, she took pen, I believe, and marked what she knew off of Google Maps. So.
Okay.
Yep.
I can do that.
You have no set geographic limits or definition of neighborhood.
No.
Whatever works for these people, for you, it's
Whatever
fine.
they think
Yeah.
is their neighborhood.
It's part of the research question is
What is it?
What is it?
defines it, and
Yeah.
we're going to try to sift through this
Yeah.
as we go along to
Yeah.
figure out what the commonalities seem to
Sure.
be.
What do you guys consider to be a neighborhood?
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet at all. I'm
Ever
serious.
evolving.
I get more confused with every interview we do. So
Okay.
So how has
Yeah.
this changed what you thought of neighborhoods when you
Well,
bigger?
I still really don't
Okay,
know. I think going back to the origin of it is kind of interesting, because the reason I got the way I got the idea for this project was someone involved with local affairs came to my class the first year I taught a class in urban sociology, and among other things said Oshkosh doesn't have neighborhoods. period. And I said, Eureka. I think I might have my next project, because what does that mean? Why does it matter? And that kind of thing. So
That's when you arrived?
No, I didn't arrive till much later
Yeah. Okay,
after I
all
took a
right.
class.
the idea had
Right.
evolved
Okay.
a little bit by then, but I'm not at the point where I have any idea of a definitive answer. I mean, there are some decent definitions out there, but I think I'd rather just keep
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
observing
You
and seeing
understand.
what people say. Maybe just to finish the
Yeah, please do.
process
I'm
so
sorry.
that's clear.
Yeah.
So the first step is, no, that's fine.
Yeah.
The first step is to simply draw a map with these specific instructions. Next step then is, for example, to take this map with these boundaries that you've created, and then take some pictures within those boundaries of things that are really important. So it's a way of refining things a little bit more. Okay, here's your neighborhood. Now let's zero in on some things that are really important for a variety of reasons.
And that's subjective, whatever that person thinks are important. There's
Yeah,
no-
I mean,
no-
we've got these categories, 7
Okay.
categories, but it's open-ended
Okay.
in terms of whatever they place value on. So
Well, and the categories are major streets, landmarks, parks.
now we're talking about the photos. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
Right here.
So,
Yep.
so these categories.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry.
They're
Didn't mean to cut
different
you off.
from the categories up above.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've drawn the map. Now we're moving on to take the photos within these boundaries.
Okay, but aren't people taking pictures of some of these things?
There is some overlap. So first category for a photo, places or things that you value for various reasons. So Menominee Park shows up in this person's pictures, for example.
Okay.
Okay.
Would the school show up?
I'm not sure for this person if it did,
Okay.
but it very well could.
Yeah.
The lake certainly did. Places or things you believe have changed in recent years, places or things you feel should be preserved and or fixed up or modified. When you're thinking about your neighborhood, places or landmarks that come to mind. Some of these things, Little Oshkosh, for example,
Okay.
I think
Gotcha.
maybe it may have been in this case. I don't have that handy, but people who you feel represent who lives in your neighborhood. Your most important neighborhood hangout, which that could be something that's marked on here. I'd assume it would be. And then one image that best captures the overall essence of the neighborhood. So if you're
Ooh,
if you're
that's
trying to say,
interesting.
this is what my neighborhood's all about,
Yeah.
could you find one photo that captures the essence of it? So that's what the photo piece
I like
is
that. Those are
about.
really neat ideas.
The other purpose with that is you can do this map sitting at your kitchen table, and it's not that much different than doing a survey. I think
Right.
it takes a little bit more creative energy, but you don't have to necessarily leave your home to do it.
Right.
And I guess we place some value on getting people moving around in their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I've used this method with previous research and found, and I'm not alone, other people around the world have
Sure.
found the same thing, that when you get people out there and they're forced to think about their everyday surroundings in a new way, bam, they can really start to see things differently. And it can cause not only new reflections to occur, like, man, I never thought about the importance of that, or how I'd really like to see that change, but they might also say, geez, I need to get involved with my community more because I really care about this park, or the fact that this old building's falling down and it's really got value, and that kind of thing. So that's, some people might look at this and say, well, man, there's a lot of overlap. It seems like we're kind of doing the same thing, but there's a reason for it. And then basically the final step is to do an interview where we essentially just sit down and start with the map and say, okay, tell us about your map. And as Kayla can attest, we just had a great interview with another person the other day that was quite lengthy because there's just so much to talk about, which is why I really like this method. Surveys are great. I've done surveys myself. This is just a little different because if we're interviewing the person that drew this map, I don't know anything about this map. The only person that does is this
that
person.
created, sure.
Same with the photos. And so for the interviewers, we do ask follow-up questions, but in essence, it's more sitting back and letting them explain as the expert for their map and the expert for their photos in their neighborhood what it's all about.
So this is really sociology in a way. I mean, you are interviewing, and the questions you're asking are, what is this? What are the variables in this neighborhood?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And what's really kind of neat for me, I guess, is it's a different kind of method. So I've talked about the photo part of it on campus in front of academics and been kind of grilled, in a good way, but grilled about what is the interview guide for this process. And an interview guide is a specific, definite list of questions that you're going to ask so that your interviews are structured in a certain way.
And for each neighborhood, you have to ask the same questions.
That would be the idea.
Yeah.
But my
It
answer,
doesn't work that way.
my answer to this, and I actually do have a short interview guide for this project, but just to illustrate what makes it a little different for this other use of photos, that, which we're doing on campus, the answer to that question, on the interview guide, is one question, and that is, could you please explain the meaning behind this photo? That's the one question, because you go through and you might have 15 photos, but you're just asking for each one, could you please explain the meaning?
Okay.
That's going to open up a discussion that neither the interviewer nor the participant can anticipate. Because if you look at some of these photos, for example, that this person took, so these are both landmarks that come to mind for this particular individual.
Sure. The railroad and the church.
Now I don't remember why exactly she took these photos offhand. I mean, we've got it in transcripts that have been typed up, but you know, she might have said, well, I just find that interesting and aesthetically pleasing. But once we started talking about it, some historical or social aspects of her life in this town may have
affected by that.
may come to the surface,
Sure.
and next thing you know, you're talking about something completely different.
Okay.
And same with any of these photos. They have many layers to them. You know, so you could start out by talking about the railroad track, but then there's these houses in the background. Well, I know, you know, at certain times there's this issue with these houses. It can go in
Sure.
all
Either
kinds
way.
of directions,
Yeah.
which makes it a great tool for discussion. So that's the other thing I want to stress about both these things. I think this goes to show that the map and the photos are interesting by themselves. But as I just demonstrated, I can't tell you what this person said.
Okay.
I don't remember in any detail, but it's all recorded. The point being that it served as a great discussion tool for talking to this person about their neighborhood and what their feelings are about the quality of life there and in Oshkosh. So it's a tool for discussion first and foremost, even though these things end up being really interesting. And this will be part of the data that the city and NeighborWorks and other people could use, is be able to look at these photos and say, wow, you know, that tells, you know, a picture tells, what is the deal? I'm not good at adages or cliches. Picture's worth 1,000 words, right?
What are some of the other pictures here? Just to kind of give people an idea of what one person did, because that might get their
Right. Yeah.
creative juices, not even creative juices, just their juices flowing.
I think we'll just go with these because they're a little small.
Sure. We've got the,
So we got Chief Oshkosh.
Yep.
It's another landmark that comes to mind for this person. A building that should be preserved. So, you know, you look at this without the context, you might say, oh, maybe they worked there, something, right? But no, it's just the building and the fact that in this person's mind,
It's on
these
Merritt,
types
right
of,
by the railroad track.
yeah, that we need to make sure we preserve this part of our history and that kind of thing. So let's see. Something this person values is the lake. And this is a great example of the discussion leading to directions that were unanticipated, because obviously this was taken in the winter, as the late spring, I think. She just wanted to capture the lake, but I think this led to two other things. One, she loved seeing people out on the lake, that there's activity, people are using it. And then we talked about, you know, in different seasons how there's all kinds of different people using the lake. Then she said, you can also see the windmills on the other side.
Okay.
And she liked the fact that you know, that's not why she intended to take the picture, but it led to
Sure.
another discussion about renewable
There's a
energy
chaser
and stuff.
bar at the bottom.
Yep. And in this case, this person happened to really be a fan of historical buildings, likes this building.
It's a neat building.
But she specifically said she'd like to see the building itself be fixed up because there's some issues there. So I think you can see how this could be really useful if you're NeighborWorks and you're looking for specific things that could help revitalize a neighborhood. This is one person's opinion, but when we're hoping to do 100 interviews
Right.
or more over 2 years
But
or
their
so.
survey isn't going to get into the detail that you are.
It won't get into the detail, probably. I mean,
No.
they'll have a lot of good quantitative
But
information
this is
that they
unique.
can.
I don't think
This is
anyone
just a
else-
little different. I think it can complement what they're doing. And you talked about, could it be useful to neighbors? Well, I certainly think so too. Because step 4, which will come later, and it's not on the sheet because it'll come after we've done the interviews,
Okay.
is to go out into neighborhood-like geographies. You know, we want. I don't. smaller settings of interaction, and have people who have done this. Let's say we've got a cluster of people in the northeastern part of the city, which we're kind of developing at the moment. So we say, let's have a neighborhood meeting, or whatever, community meeting to discuss, and let them just show their photos and explain why they took them, show their maps. And people will then be able to see what they have in common, what's different, and use it as a tool to discuss the issues that are important to their neighborhood. That could lead to a number of things depending on what they'd want to do. Maybe they say, maybe we should take this a step further and form a neighborhood association for this area, whatever the case might be.
Could I ask, I'd like as a student, I always learn, not to cut you off, but
No, that's fine.
what does this project mean to you, and what are you getting out of it?
Well, when he approached me about being his research assistant, I was really excited about it because I took both his rural and his urban sociology classes, and he does a lot of field work, a lot of you need to get out in the community. That's the way that you're going to learn. It's not so much in the classroom. So for me, this was kind of a continuation of it, which I'm going to be a teacher, so this is even more important to me. So in the course of all the interviews, it's really interesting because I didn't grow up in the city. I grew up in the country. So for me, a neighborhood is huge because my neighbors are 5 miles away, but I still know them. And so it was just it's very interesting seeing how large some people consider their neighborhoods, how small some people consider their neighborhoods. And I think that at the college level, that students really need to realize that this is an important part. I mean, just because you're going to college here doesn't mean that you also don't need to be involved in the city. And so a lot of us, like the farmers market downtown, what neighborhood is that part of? And a lot of us go to it. So I think just being involved, I like being involved in it. And thank you for the opportunity to do it because it's really fun. I like listening to what people have to say, and it's very different. Every interview is very different.
What are some surprising interview questions or answers you got?
Well, some themes that have developed is the importance of water. That's a big one. I think the lake has been in every interview I've transcribed and conducted. The importance of walking dogs and how that has helped people meet their neighbors. That's a big one. They just stop and talk because their dogs are friendly, and so then they become friends because their dogs are friendly. So that was kind of an interesting one. I'm trying to think.
Well, this most recent interview demonstrated another great benefit to this method, I think. It was a surprising answer. To what the question was, I cannot remember exactly.
Well, we're almost out of time.
You got 20 seconds.
Okay. Well, this is pretty big.
Okay.
Because you could just be talking about having a block party. Next thing you're talking about race and class.
Okay.
Really quickly. Because this person said, our neighborhood is really comfortable. That's how I describe it overall. Maybe too comfortable. What do you mean by that?
Too easy.
It's too easy. Well, it's very homogeneous. It's affluent white people, essentially, is what this person said. And that makes it easy because it's not diverse and they're not dealing with class issues or race issues. So there are big issues that we'll be getting into by virtue of just asking these simple kind of questions about where you live.
Okay, excellent. Well, very good. Thanks so much for both of you, to both of you
It was
for
really
being here.
entertaining. I enjoyed it.
Great.
Really.
I'm going to put the sheet of what they're asking for on our website. You can also get it at the city's website, and we'll have you back as this develops some more.
That'd be great.
So.
Yeah, very much so.
Anyway, thanks very much for joining us. We will see you next time. Until then, take good care. Keep your eye on us. We've got our eye on Oshkosh.